Partly sunny, much more humid today, high 84, and a humid night ahead and a low of 70. 67 at O'Hare, next news at 7. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And so the briefing yesterday, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby, there was a Afghan reporter. Her name is Nazir Karimi, and she offered this about what has transpired in her country.
Thank you so much, John. As you know, I'm from Afghanistan, and I'm very upset today because Afghan women didn't expect that overnight all the Taliban came. They took off my flag. This is my flag. They put their flag. Everybody is upset, especially women. And I forgot my question. What do you ask? Where is my president, former President Ghani? People expected that he bye-bye with the people. And immediately he ran away. We don't know where is he. And we don't have a president. President Biden said that President Ghani, no. He has to fight for us people. They have to do everything, and we were able to financially help them. But we don't have any president. We don't have anything. Afghan people, they don't know what to do. Women has a lot of achievement in Afghanistan. I had a lot of achievement. I left from the Taliban like 20 years ago. Now we go back to the first step again. Do you have any comment? Where is our president, Ghani? He should answer to Afghan people.
Well, I obviously can't speak for Ashraf Ghani or where he is or what his views are. I wouldn't do that. But let me say with all respect that I understand, and we all understand, the anxiety and the fear and the pain that you're feeling. It's clear and it's evident. And nobody here at the Pentagon is happy about the images that we've seen coming out in the last few days.
Yeah, I feel your pain in lieu of I take responsibility for what we did and didn't do.
Well, was Pentagon and Biden on the same page on this?
They're reading from the same talking points. The administration planned for every possibility. There were contingency plans in place for any eventuality. That's what I'm reading right here from the White House talking points in Afghanistan, so it must be true. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. We haven't talked to in a while. Good to have him back. He's the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, co-founder of the Muslim Reform Movement. He's a former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander and author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam. Dr. Jasser, good to have you back.
It's great to be with you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
I don't understand why that journalist, Ms. Karimi, is so upset that Taliban announced that they want an inclusive government.
The Taliban is, as you know, Afghanistan's ISIS, and they're terrorists. They are 13th century at best. They will rule with the enslavement and torture of women, believing in a form of draconian Sharia law that will turn Afghanistan in total into basically Iran on steroids, in which women have no bodily autonomy. You know, I sat on the U.S. Commission on Religious Freedom for 4 years, and Afghanistan is still listed on the list of countries with special concern, on special watch list, and that's even when the Taliban only ran 30-40% of the country. Yes, Afghanistan is a failed state. Yes, we should have essentially left there. But, you know, listen, I practice medicine and I'm a physician. When we discharge a patient from the hospital, we don't one day walk in the room and say, oh, you're ready to be home, you're ready to be discharged, so we're just going to throw you out the front door in a wheelchair onto the street. You plan it, there's a plan, and then sometimes patients succeed, sometimes they don't. But this was done by nitwits in the State Department and DOD, because they really don't care. They betrayed the Afghani people. I'm talking about the Biden administration. And not only was there no strategy, it basically burned and turned on a dime 20 years of investment of the American population into Afghanistan in counter-terror operations. And it didn't have to be this way. We could have still left, but ownership is perception. And by doing it this way, we end up owning the departure that ruined the entire perception. And I can tell you, Dan, over the next generation, August 2021, this week, is going to be perceived as a tipping point in the weakness of America against the access of Islamism, be it from Afghanistan with the Taliban to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt to the Khomeinists in Iran, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Many of these ascending political Islamic Sharia states are going to see this as a time in which they got the green light, and America has not only gone militarily strategically, and by the way, there's a short-term problem, which is what the Biden administration failed, and then there's a long-term problem, which is we never engaged the ideology of political Islam at all. So there's a lot of multiple pathologies here, but the bottom line is it didn't have to be like it happened in the last 10 days.
Dr. Jasser, I have so many questions, but one, why do we tell our enemies the date that we're leaving? Why would anybody do that? Give them that information.
I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense. It's because our so-called commander-in-chief has no wherewithal to understand what it is to lead lead strategy. And basically he did it because it had political points he thought he was going to make at the time. And his interns that just got out of Harvard or wherever they were from thought it might be smart to do. Meanwhile, many of us, the Biden administration won't even meet with Iranian dissidents. Last week, they sent a message to Iranian democracy activists in Washington. They won't meet with them. Why? Because Obama 3.0 is trying to rekindle this nuclear deal. And oh, surprise, they are evacuating Afghanistan at the same time on a dime. And this is all happening at the same time because globally, the far-left progressivists have been working closely with the Islamists. They think they're about human rights and feminism and gay rights, but at the end of the day, all the rainbow flags in Afghanistan are gone now. So I'm not sure what the left's principles are, but they really don't care about human rights. There's a bigotry of low expectations when it comes to Muslims, and it's on display this week in Afghanistan.
Interesting. That's an interesting comment. You mentioned Pakistan. The Prime Minister there, Imran Khan, was positively giddy upon hearing the Taliban had ascended to control of Afghanistan. I mean, considering he provided safe haven for them in Pakistan, it would stand to reason. But saying he said that they have broken the shackles of slavery, the Taliban has. So how should we understand our ally in the region, Pakistan, and what do you think happens with all of those Islamist terrorist organizations that you mentioned in the region in the wake of this?
That's a great question, and you hit the nail on the head. Imran Khan, I'll remind folks, is a former soccer player that campaigned on the fact that he thought he was coming up to counter the Islamists, was sort of a normal secular dude with girlfriends and other things, and he pretended to be non-Islamist, non-theocratic, but at the end of the day, his rule over the past many years has been basically kowtowing to the Islamists, pushing anti-American conspiracy theories. And while Pakistan might strategically be an ally militarily, realistically, ideologically, they're not. And that's why Osama bin Laden was hiding there. That's why when we did an operation to get him, we couldn't even tell the Pakistani government we were going to do so. So if you're going to continue, at the end of the day, yes, we need to pull out military operations in general, but we haven't lost a soldier in Afghanistan to the Taliban in the last 18 months. So to call that a never-ending war is basically propaganda of folks who really want to just sort of upend what we're doing for political points when we had strategic positioning in a country right next to Iran, right next to Pakistan. These areas are continuing to be high threats for ideological cells that can build themselves. And what we need, I think if there's any lessons we can get out of what's happening now, is maybe America will open our eyes to the fact that, yes, there's no military strategy to defeat the Islamist ascendancy, but boy, we need to get going on the Cold War against political Islam because it is growing in Iran, Syria, Afghanistan, and across the planet.
Is that the fundamental mistake that we've made? I mean, not just the last 20 years and the last four presidents, but going back to our support of the Mujahideen in the 80s, you know, the Charlie Wilson's War, as it's sort of known, by the great book, not a very good movie, by the way. But is that it, that we haven't confronted the ideology? We've looked at it strictly through the lens of the military?
I cannot underscore that enough. That's been my testimony to Congress when I testified to the Senate. In 18, I said, what's this countering violent extremism? Come on, you guys, get a spine. It's countering Islamism. But they were so worried about free speech and Islamophobia and all these other constructs of Islamists that prevent us from countering the real threat, the real war that's happening between. I mean, it's not a surprise that the Ilhan Omars of the world this week are giddy. She's not complaining about the loss of women's rights in Afghanistan on her Twitter feed the last few days. No, it's all about anti-Americanism. It's about getting us out of their way so Islamists from Turkey to Qatar to Iran can ascend. And, yes, it's a failed state, but the fact that for so long, remember the Iranian approach of Obama was, we have to work with the moderate presidents, etc. Now they just elected the hanging judge to become their president, in which there's been a complete confluence. There's no such thing as a moderate Islamist. These are basically smokescreens to have the left think that somehow, a nonviolent terrorist, a nonviolent Islamist is better than a violent Islamist. And they're all drinking from the same hookah, or smoking from the same hookah, if you will, which is about the fact that everything's to blame on the West, while Islamism, Islamic State concepts are going to ascend. And the way to defeat that is to work with groups like our Muslim Reform Movement that believes in secular democracy, that wants to separate mosque and state. There's so many women that are fighting for this, and men that believe in freedom and want to counter the yoke of Islamic theocracy, no different than what our founding fathers did in America against theocracy. But so far, it seems that the establishment in America just wants to look at us as a military target and then leave immediately on a dime, rather than have any long-term growth in a Cold War concept, information war, if you will, against political Islam.
Well, we have military bases around the world. Why not have one there in Kabul?
Exactly. Now, listen, I get the difference with there are comparisons to Germany and Korea and Japan, where we have bases. But first of all, I'll remind folks, we completely defeated those countries in a massive conflict and a massive war. We did not necessarily go in and completely defeat Afghanistan. Yes, we defeated the Taliban, but the other thing is Afghanistan is an ally, but it's a failed state. Having said that, we have bases around the world because we're able to, with intelligence, with operations, fight conflicts there before they set up shop and then bring it here. Remember, Afghanistan was not, as we come on the 20th anniversary, we have since had 7/7 in 2005. We had Fort Hood in 2009. We had ISIS operations in Charlie Hebdo in 2015. We had numbers of attacks that have continued in the West and are going to continue. Austria, just a few months ago, because of an attack in their country, declared political Islam to be an ideology they were going to prevent from spreading, which, by the way, I find to be foolhardy. That's not how you defeat bad ideas, by making them illegal. But bottom line is we are knee-deep into a conflict that isn't going to go away by just pulling troops out of Afghanistan. And a few thousand troops there, I mean, when we pulled a few hundred or 1,000 troops out of Syria that we did a year ago, the Turks went in and slaughtered the Kurds. And that was prevented by a few hundred troops. And yes, we weren't there to fight wars. That's not why our troops are there. But we are feared. And now that's not going to happen anymore. We are no longer feared.
Speaking of that, how damaging will it be? I mean, in addition to just the moral damage, but the geopolitical damage, if we do not provide safe haven, if we do not get all of those translators and other Afghan people who helped us, helped our troops, were on America's side during the fighting with the Taliban over the last 20 years, if we do not get them out, if they're slaughtered by the Taliban, what would the implications of that be for the Islamic world as they view America?
The same implications as we see now, as the world sees folks who really have no ideological love for America flowing across our borders, and yet we have folks that have been working hand in hand with our military to keep America secure, who fly American flags on their door, that have been working with us, that now we sort of let hang off a cargo plane that takes off and die from that because we aren't supporting them. Yes, we need to bring them back and give them safe haven because we owe that. We can't betray them. And it'll be used on Al Jazeera. It'll be used on Press TV out of Iran, Syrian TV, Russian TV. This stuff will be pressed all over that America will abandon you and serve its own interest. And my family saw America as a liberator. Our military, the reason I served in the military 11 years was my parents taught me that the Syrian military, the Iranian military was evil. The American military is a force of good. It's there to help people. When I served in the USS El Paso, we went to Somalia to take food to try to help them. It was a force of good. It wasn't a colonial imperialist adventure at all. Now, the Islamists try to paint us that way, and these images and the folks that we abandon are not going to look to us in the future to be helping them, because they're going to say, well, they might help us now, but boy, would the political wings bring in a Biden who's a Carter 2.0 or Obama 3.0, you're going to end up seeing them depart. So maybe we better find some other way to work.
He is Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, co-founder of the Muslim Reform Movement, former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, as he was describing, and pick up the book, A Battle for the Soul of Islam. Dr. Jasser, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.